Hi, today we're going to be talking about one of the most important things when calibrating your coffee at home, which is dose. So today we're going to be talking through how do you figure out what dose you should be using, how you can assure that using the tools that come with your machine, and we're going to be reiterating some of the incredible innovations that Sage has come up with that a lot of people just put in the back of the machine and never use. So first we're going to figure out, how do we know what the right dose is? To be honest, no one does. But the person who has the best idea is your local specialty roaster, a specialty coffee shop, or anyone with incredible coffee knowledge. In this case, we're going to talk to our specialty roaster where we are today, and they've given us 19 grams as the intended dose. Another way to do this, if your roaster gives you a recipe, for example 1 to 2, the way to decode this is it's 1 gram of coffee to 2 grams of liquid espresso. This is universal, and it means if, for example, in their commercial machines they use 14 grams for a 28 gram extraction, you can then size this up as all of the Sage machines will work to a set dose, which fortunately is 19 or 22 grams. The way you can differentiate this is we use 19 grams for our 54mm baskets and 20 to 22 grams for our 58mm baskets. You can look at the size of your portafilter. 54 is for our single boiler units. Those are, for example, the Bambino Plus, the Duo Temp, the Barista Express, the Barista Pro, and the Barista Touch. And then the dual boiler systems, which are, quite tellingly, the dual boiler, the Oracle, and the Oracle Touch. So now we know 19 grams is our intended dose, and we're going to stick to that. This is one of the key learnings whenever you're calibrating a machine, for the simple reason that if you consistently change your dose and your grind size, it'll be a lot harder to land on that perfect sweet spot in your coffee. So what we're going to do now is figure out how to get 19 grams in our basket. As you can see, I've got a scale here, but don't worry, a scale isn't required, and I'm going to show you what all of our machines have, from the Barista Pro in our manual range all the way up to the Oracle Touch, that help assure that you have a consistent dose every single time. To do this, we're going to grind some coffee in our Barista Pro. But first, we're going to use our scales to tear off the weight of our portafilter. To do this, you place your portafilter onto your scales and you press the tear button. This is universal across all scales. Obviously I have an exceptionally fancy pair here, but if I'm honest, the ones I use at home are just really simple scales. Now we know this portafilter, to the scale's mind, weighs nothing. Now we're going to grind an amount of coffee. I don't know how much yet, but we'll show you in a sec how you figure that out. Here we've got a big pile of coffee. That's a professional term from the industry, and it means you've got an amount of coffee that you don't know what it is. First, I'm just going to simply knock it on the side. This taps it down. It starts breaking up any larger clumps, but also it makes it more manageable. You don't want a big pile of coffee that drops off all the time. Then we're going to put it onto our scales, and you can see we've got 21.9 grams of coffee in the basket. How do I change this into the 19 grams that's required for my recipe from my roaster? So first I'm going to tamp it, pushing down on a level surface as hard as we can and using our fingers to ensure that it's nice and flat and level. Next step is using this tool, which I haven't quite explained yet. The razor is exactly what it says. It will cut off a certain amount of coffee in our basket to give us the intended dose. And it will do this every single time, and it will do this pretty much regardless of the grind size and grind amount that you put in. It will work universally across all the machines, across all coffees. So what we're going to do is, holding it over either a knockbox, we're just going to scrape it round, and here you can see I've shaved off this amount of coffee. So once I've shaved it off, super simple, you can just turn it upside down. Be sure to do this after tamping, and also one of the great things is once you've tamped, it means you can turn this upside down and your coffee won't fall out. So now, what we've been waiting for, is this now 19 grams? If we look on our scales here, it's perfectly 19 grams. So a simple piece of metal with a set amount gives me an assured dose every single time. And I would really ask anyone at home who hates faffing around with their scales, replacing the batteries, having to constantly go back, it breaks, all of those things. For example, at the start of this video, I forgot to tear the scales. I do that on a daily basis, and I work as a professional barista. So this will give you the same consistent results every single time without the need to have sometimes very expensive scales on hand. And it comes for free with every single Sage machine. So how do we assure exactly the same dose in the Oracle and Oracle Touch? We're going to do exactly the same thing, but because it has a fully automated grinding and tamping system, it does all the stuff I just did over here for me. I'll show you now. So what we're going to do, exactly as before, take out our portafilter, pop it on our scales, tear it as before, pick this up and put it in 45-degree angle, pick the drink we want, and start our grinding. Here you can see that it's going to grind and then tamp, and it will tell you what it's doing on the screen. Now that it's finished grinding and tamping, we can take it out. And the moment of truth, what's the dose? In this case, we're on 22.8. And if I do this again, it will be 22.8 every single time, again, regardless of what coffee's in my hopper. So in both cases, we've used simple tools or extremely complicated tools to assure the same thing, which is a consistent and even dose across every single shot. We can then go down to the really tricky part of changing our grind size to get that really beautiful, sweet espresso that we want. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully this has explained a little bit more why dose is so important and how to achieve it consistently every time with Sage machines.